This video is going to go over the answers to problems 29 through 45 of the 2015 released SOL geometry test. These are the problems that are covered in reporting category 3, which covers polygons, circles, three-dimensional figures, solids, everything like that. So let's get started with question 29. Remember, the first thing we want to do is always find that keyword like we talked about in the other two videos. Those keywords can be what, which, how, find, select. It's actually what the problem's asking or what you're provided to find. So what is the sum of the measures of the interior angles of this polygon? So what I told you guys to do in class was to come up with interior, exterior. So we're making a table. Hopefully I won't run out of pencil marks. So we had sum, and then we had each on a regular polygon. So our formulas were n minus 2 times 180, 360. Those were what the sums were of interior and exterior angles. And then we just took the same things and divided them by n, which n was the number of sides. So for this one, we have a polygon with how many sides? Well, we have 5 different angles, so that means n is equal to 5. And the problem says the sum of the measures of interior angles, so we're using this formula right here. So it's really simple. 5 minus 2 times 180. Oh, I ran out of pencil marks. So that should be enough. 5 minus 2 times 180. Whenever we punch that into our calculators, we get the correct answer of B, 540. So that table that I put up earlier, that's something that you should definitely have on your formula sheet. It's not something that's provided for you, however. Let's take a look at question 30. So again, we find that keyword to start off. Our keyword is what is the value of x. So we have to read our information above and look at this picture to figure out other things. So we're told that the shape is a rectangle. So what we know about a rectangle is all 4 of these vertices are right angles on the quadrilateral. We should see that we have a triangle, and then all 3 of those angles have to add up to 180. So we have 2x plus 4 plus 62 plus, remember this is 90 degrees, is equal to 180. When we combine like terms, we have all numbers there. So 4 plus 66, sorry, 4 plus 62 plus 90 gets us 156 equals 180. We subtract 156 from each side. So 2x is going to equal 24. When we divide by 2, x will equal 12. And that is letter A. So again, make sure we're finding the right thing. We underlined the problem. It said find the value of angle x, or sorry, find the value of x, and that's just what we did. So for question 31, it says, what is the length of KZ? So in order to do, we can actually solve this right now. We don't need the other information. The picture shows us that 2 chords WP and KZ intersect at point L in the circle shown. So this formula is also not given to you on your SOL formula sheet. If we have A, B, C, and D, which we have here, we have A times B is equal to C times D. So what that means is I'm going to have the 2 lengths here, LP and LW, so that's going to be 5 times X. I multiply them, is equal to, when I multiply those two things together, the product of 2 and 3x minus 2. Don't forget to write parentheses. We have to distribute that 2 to each of our terms. 5x is equal to 6x minus 4. We can subtract 6x. So we get negative x is equal to negative 4. Divide by negative 1. And we get x is equal to 4. So I'm kind of surprised that 4 isn't an option because it's a very good trap answer. We solve for x. But what's the problem asking us for? It's asking us for kz. So how big is kz? It's 2 plus 3x minus 2. So when I plug that in, 2 plus 3 times 4 minus 2 is 2 plus 12 minus 2. And I'm out of marks again, unsurprisingly. So we'll get rid of our picture here. Don't have much more to write. And this is just going to be 12. So the answer for number 31 is D. Question 32 says, we don't have a, well, we do have a keyword. It is what. So what effect does this have on the volume of the cone? Well, we have to read some other things. So it says the height and radius of a cone are each multiplied by 3. So if I look at my formula sheet, I'm going to be using volume, 1/3 pi r squared h, that's right here. So the volume is equal to 1/3 pi r squared h. And it says the height and radius of the cone are each multiplied by 3. What effect does this have on the volume of the cone? So there's a lot of different ways we can do this, but we're squaring the radius and we're multiplying by the height. So you should think, if I'm tripling the radius, that means I'm doing like 3 squared. And if I'm tripling the height, I'm multiplying it by 3 again. 3 squared times 3 is 27. So the volume of the cone is being multiplied by 27. That's going to be our answer. So we click on the arrow and we type in 27. So remember, the radius is getting squared, 3 squared times another 3 for the increase in the height. The next problem, the key word is what is r, the length of the radius of circle A. So then let's read the problem in its entirety because we don't have enough information to solve it. The equation x minus 1 squared plus y minus 3 squared is equal to r squared represents circle A. The point B, 4, 7, lies on the circle. What is the radius r, the length of the circle, the radius in circle A? So there's r, and I know that this point, xy, is what I'm going to substitute. So remember, I have a circle. I have the center, which is going to be 1, 3. Remember, we changed the signs of these to find the center. And I know that 4, 7, which is somewhere like over here, is on the circle. So there's a couple different ways we can do this. We can use the distance formula. All I'm going to do is plug in these values of x and y into this right here. So r squared is going to be equal to 4. I got my 4 from my point B, so right there is where I'm getting the 4. 4 minus 1 squared plus my y is 7. 7 minus 3 squared. So whenever I type this in, I get 25. So r squared is equal to 25. Again, 25 could be a trap answer. We're kind of lucky that it's not given to us as an option. But all we need to do is solve for r. So we take the square root of it. So r will be equal to 5. So we move on to the next problem, question 34, which is closest to the area of the section of this garden. So we're finding area, and you should see that this is part of an entire circle. So we're finding sector area. So if we go to our formula sheet, we're going to find the area of the circle, pi r squared. And since we're not finding the entire circle, we're going to multiply it by the central angle over 360. So the central angle is 80 degrees, the radius is 13. So the area is just going to be equal to pi times 13 squared times 80 over 360. So when we type that in our calculator, we get 117.984, and it goes on forever. So you should see that that's closest to A, 118. Moving on to the next one, here's our key word, which is closest to the volume of the cylinder. So right away, I know what the problem's asking me for, the volume of the cylinder. So I get my formula sheet out, I find the cylinder, the volume V pi r squared h. So volume is equal to pi r squared h. So I need to find out what r is and what h is. So it says the height of the cylinder is 9.5 centimeters. So my height is right there, 9.5 centimeters. It says the diameter of the cylinder is 1.5 centimeters longer than the height. So I have the diameter, I don't have the radius. It's going to be 1.5 plus 9.5, which is equal to 11. You should remember that the radius is equal to the diameter divided by 2. So it's 11 over 2, which is 5.5. Now that I have those values, the volume is going to be equal to pi times 5.5 squared times 9.5. So what I can do is I can figure out what 5.5 squared times 9.5 is, and I get 287. It goes on for a little while, so it's pi times 287.375. And that's going to be centimeters cubed because it's the volume. So which is closest? Well, that's just going to be B, 287 pi. So let's move on to question 36. So this time our which is right at the beginning. Which shape must have opposite sides that are parallel and congruent? So you should know the shape that is parallel and congruent is a parallelogram. And diagonals that are perpendicular bisectors of each other. So diagonals that are perpendicular bisectors of each other. So just the bisector part, so the bisector part alone is a parallelogram. We should remember that. A parallelogram had 5 different features. The opposite sides were parallel and congruent. The diagonals were bisectors of one another. The opposite angles were congruent, and the consecutive angles were supplementary. But this key perpendicular, the ones that had perpendicular diagonals, were rhombuses. So that's why the answer is C. We could go into a lot more detail on this problem. So we already discussed the properties of parallelograms. Rectangles had congruent diagonals, and 4 right angles. And a lot of you might be thinking it's a trapezoid, but the thing that makes it not a trapezoid is that it only has one pair of parallel sides, and they don't have to be congruent. So that congruent part is out. Our answer is C, rhombus. So to answer this question, question number 37, we need to use our formula sheet. On the other side, we see the equation of a circle, which is right here. So H and K are our center, and R is the radius. So these are pretty easy to make an equation. So I have this point, so it's going to be x minus 4 squared plus y plus 7 squared. So what we do is we change the signs of 4, that's where it becomes minus, and negative 7 becomes plus 7. So we have x minus 4 squared. Let me erase that. We have x minus 4 squared plus y plus 7 squared equals the radius squared. So on our formula sheet, it's the radius squared. So it's going to be equals 4 squared. So I kind of broke the rule that I like to follow. I didn't look for the keyword first. The keyword was create the equation of this circle. So that's what we did. We created an equation of that circle. Remember, if you even screw up one of these things on the SOL, you will not get any credit for the problem. It's very important that you put in everything correctly. So this problem says, what is the measure of angle DCE? So what we're looking for is DCE right here. So I'm going to call this Y because I have all this other information here that's in terms of X. So I have this angle right here is 90 degrees. Angle ABC is this one here, which is 120 degrees. Angle ADC is 2x plus 30. And angle BCD is just x. So how I solve this problem is I need to add up all 4 sides of this quadrilateral. Kind of looks like a kite. It doesn't have to be a kite, but we just need to add up these angles. So 90 plus 120 plus x plus 2x plus 30. So since it's a quadrilateral, it's going to be equal to 360. Whenever we add these up, we get 240 plus 3x. So I added up those 3 and those 2 equals 360. Again, 360 is coming from the fact it's a quadrilateral. We subtract 240, and we're out of lines. So I probably erased the parts that I didn't want to. I wanted to keep this as x. So we get 3x is equal to 120. We divide by 3. X is 40. So this could be another trap answer, but lucky for us it isn't. So if this is 40, remember, 40 plus y has to equal 180. So we just subtract 40, and I'm out of lines again. And we get y. Well, you can do it from there. Y is equal to 140, which is B. So question 39 what is the surface area of the prism? So we get our formula sheet out, and we're looking for surface area this time. A couple other problems were volume. So it's 2LW plus 2LH plus 2WH. So 2LW surface area plus 2LH plus 2WH. So L, W, and H. What are these three things equal to? So this is a pretty simple problem. We'll keep the same notation as they use. The height's probably the easiest to find. It's 18 inches. The length and the width, I guess we'll call the length 24 inches and the width 12 inches. So then we just plug it in. 2 times 24 times 12 plus 2 times 24 times 18 plus 2 times 12 times 18. So all I did was substitute L, W, and H into my problem. So what we get is 1872. So we get 1872 inches squared. So we're finding an area, it's inches squared, and that's just letter C. For question 40, it says the volumes of two spheres are in a ratio of 1 to 8. What is the ratio of their radii? So how we did this in class was, I said we had A over B, A squared over B squared, and A cubed over B cubed. So remember, these were ratios. You should remember square over square. These are the ratio of areas. So that could be surface areas or lateral areas. A cubed over B cubed was the ratio of the volumes. And A over B was the ratio of everything else, which was like radius, or radii as they use here, perimeter, length, width. So I'll probably run out of lines, but we can keep going on and on. Length, width, circumference, height, things that are in one dimension. Remember, we would measure everything else in terms of centimeters, area in terms of centimeters squared, and volumes in terms of centimeters cubed. So we have the ratio of the volumes. That means A cubed over B cubed is 1 over 8, and we want to find A over B. So in order to do that, we have to take the cube root of 1 over 8 to get A over B. The cube root of 1 over 8 is 1 over 2. So the answer to question 40 is letter D, 1 over 2, or 1 to 2. This is a problem where we can save ourselves a lot of time just by finding our keyword. Which measure is closest to the length of the arc the minute hand travels during this 18-minute period? So we're very lucky because we have the arc right here. And if you read it, you'll make sure that that's what we have. It says the minute hand on the clock is 10 centimeters. So I guess we need this information here. The minute hand would be the radius. So 10 centimeters long and travels through an arc of 108 degrees every 18 minutes. So we're finding a portion of the circumference. When we look at our formula sheet, our circumference is 2 pi r. So the arc of the length, arc length, is equal to 2 pi r times the central angle over 360. This is very similar to what we did with sector area a few problems ago. We have r is equal to 10, so 2 pi times 10 times our central angle, which is 108 over 360. So when we plug this into the calculator, we get an answer of 18 0.849, and it keeps going on and on and on. So we see that that answer is just D. So we're coming to the end. We have question 42. It says, which point lies on the circle represented by the equation x minus 1 squared plus y minus 3 squared equals 7. So remember, just like we did earlier on another circle problem, we're going to substitute x and y in. So we're going to try the first one, see what it comes up with. Negative 1 minus 1 squared, so this is letter A, plus 4 minus 3 squared. What does that equal? So whenever we type it into the calculator, we get 5. We just got 5. We didn't get 7 squared, which is 49. So we have to get something that comes out as 49, so A is not the right answer. The correct answer for this one will be letter D. So when I do letter D, again we have x and y. I have 8 minus 1 squared plus 3 minus 3 squared. Whenever we type that into the calculator, we get 49. Remember, 7 squared is 49. So D is the correct answer. To be able to do this problem, you need to know the properties of a square. So it says select each property that is valid about the diagonals of a square. So a square is a quadrilateral. It's a parallelogram. It's a rhombus. And it's a rectangle. So a square is all of these things. So when the diagonals of a shape are perpendicular, that means it's a rhombus. Well, since a square is a rhombus, we're going to say that the diagonals are perpendicular. When the diagonals bisect each other, that means it's a parallelogram. And again, a square is a parallelogram, so the diagonals do bisect each other. And the last option we needed to choose from is the diagonals of a square. Are they congruent or not congruent? Well, when they're congruent, that means it's a rectangle. And I came really close to getting that through. And since a square is a rectangle, that means the diagonals are congruent. So you have to know your properties to solve this one and use a little bit of thinking. So for question 44, our keyword is which is closest to the minimum amount of sand that Sarah needs to completely fill the glass sphere. So whenever you see this word fill the glass, the words fill the glass sphere, that should tell you that you're going to create or you're going to find volume. What's our shape? Well, a glass sphere is a sphere. So on our formula sheet, we're going to find the volume of a sphere. So that's 4/3 pi r cubed. So we have 4/3 pi r cubed. So the only variable I need is r. The radius of the sphere is 2 inches. So r is 2 inches. Then we just write it out. 4/3 pi times 2 cubed. And we get an answer of 33.510, and it keeps going on and on forever. So the closest to the minimum amount, that would be 33.5. So let's go to the last question. It says, which is closest to the width of the base of the model? So in order to do this, we're going to need to read the problem above. We can't just get away with looking at the picture because it's not going to help us. So it says Aaron built a geometrically similar model to the Washington Monument. So the key piece of information there is that it's a similar model. The height of the actual monument, so we have the actual, we have the height, and we have the width, and so we have the height and we have the model. So the height of the actual monument is nearly 555.5 feet. And Aaron's model is 505 millimeters. The width of the base of the actual monument is 55 feet. So which is the closest to the base of the model? So we're looking for X. So whenever we set up the proportion, we put one thing on the top, so we're going to use the actual, so it's going to be 555.5 feet over the model, 505 millimeters, equals 55 feet over X. So what we need to do is cross multiply this. We see that our unit should be in millimeters, which is what we have here. So I'm not going to worry about the units in this problem. So 505 times 55 is equal to 555. I had a feeling that was going to happen. So I'm going to erase my is equal to 55x. We divide by 55. I'm sorry, I did that wrong. So we add 505 times 55, and it's equal to 555.5x. So we divide both sides by 555.5. Hopefully you guys can figure this out before I have all of this erasing done. So we're dividing it by 555.5. And that'll get us our final answer of just 50. So X is equal to 50 millimeters, which is letter B. I hope this was helpful, and please watch the other two videos which go over the other two reporting categories. If you watch it, you understand it, it should be very applicable to the actual SOL, and I'm quite sure you'll be able to pass.